We are diving into a world where everything is measured, quantified, and just, utterly devoid of comfort.
A society that operates under this one single uncompromising decree.
Facts alone are wanted in life. Plant nothing else and root out everything else.
And that intense, almost totalitarian demand for cold, hard facts. That is the very intellectual foundation of the source material we are cracking open today.
Yeah, it's a vision of society set in this stark opposition to something equally necessary for human survival.
The craving for fancy, imagination, wonder.
That opposition, fact versus fancy, is the core conflict driving Charles Dickens' 1854 novel, Hard Times. For these times. And our mission today is to navigate the, brutal simplicity and passionate intensity of this book.
It's so different from his other work, it's often considered his most polemical, his most structurally precise novel.
So for you, the listener, this deep dive is a way to get right to the heart of its stark structure, its fierce social critique, and these incredible archetypes Dickens created.
Characters made specifically to embody this age of calculating utilitarian thinking.
And it is so crucial to understand Dickens' intense motivation for writing this book.
Oh, absolutely. This wasn't just another story for him, not like Bleak House or David Copperfield, which were unfolding around the same time. This was an outright moral and intellectual revolt.
You can feel the anger in the prose.
You can. We know from his letters and notes that he explicitly wrote this to shake some people in a terrible mistake of these days. He was launching a passionate revolt against the whole industrial order of the modern world.
Wow. And that explains why the novel feels so compressed, maybe, so structurally rigid, almost like a fable.
Exactly. It's purposefully exaggerated. It's a sort of morality play designed to make a singular, forceful point about what happens when you reduce humanity to a column of figures.
You even see that intent signaled right away in the dedication.
Yes, the dedication to Thomas Carlyle. Now, Carlyle's a contentious figure, but he was a major philosopher of the era, known for his intense criticism of industrial society.
The cash nexus, right?
The cash nexus, exactly. The idea that all human relationships could be reduced to economic exchange. So when Dickens dedicates the novel to him, he's signaling right away that the book is, conceptual from the start.
Meaning the ideas, the issues, the philosophical conflict, that's the priority. More so than, say, a sprawling plot or deep psychological dives into every character.
That's a key distinction. Unlike other Dickens novels, where the sheer momentum of character and plot might carry us through, Hard Times is structured like an argument. It's a piece of political theory dressed up as fiction.
And he even labels the structure for us.
He does. The 3 books are labeled. Book the first, Sowing, Book the second, Reaping, and Book the third, Garnering.
It's a controlled experiment. You plant the seed of utilitarianism.
Sowing.
Watch the inevitable moral catastrophe unfold.
Reaping.
And then you see what little moral harvest can be salvaged at the end.
Garnering. It's incredibly deliberate.
So how are we going to break down this powerful revolt? We're going to start with the reigning philosophy itself, the Gradgrind system, and this tyranny of utilitarianism that dominates the city of Coketown.
Then we'll get into the distorted character archetypes, the products and the casualties of this system.
Following that, we'll turn to the tragic muddle of the working class, embodied by Stephen Blackpool.
And finally, we'll see where Dickens suggests salvation lies, with the redeeming power of fancy, of imagination and affection.
Okay, let's get into it. The novel doesn't waste a single sentence setting the scene.
Not one. It opens quite literally with the founding principle of this entire world. We meet the retired wholesale hardware merchant and member of parliament, Mr. Thomas Gradgrind, and his philosophy.
And we need to unpack that philosophy because it is so much more than just a preference for data. It's an ideological dogma.
Oh, it is. Gradgrind embodies the one thing needful, which he declares is facts alone.
He believes with absolute certainty that you must plant nothing else and root out everything else. This isn't just for the classroom, is it?
Not at all. It's a universal worldview. It's applied to education, to his own family, to society, to aesthetics, to absolutely everything.
And Dickens, being Dickens, makes him the walking, talking embodiment of this rigid, oppressive system. He's a master of that symbolic detail.
He really is. Gradgrind is just defined by his angularity, his squareness. We get this precise image of his square wall of a forehead, which implies this flat, unyielding barrier against any kind of nuance or emotion.
Right, and his eyes are set deep in commodious cellarage.
Commodious cellarage. Like, there's vast storage for facts down there, but no light, no vision.
That imagery of squareness is relentless. We hear about his Square coat, square legs, square shoulders.
Even his neckcloth is trained to take him by the throat with an unaccommodating grasp like a stubborn fact.
It's as if the system is physically strangling him, but he accepts it as necessary discipline. Dickens even says the knobs on his head look like the crust of a plum pie, as if his head has scarcely warehouse room for the hard facts stored inside.
This relentless geometry just reinforces the idea that his mind, and therefore the system he represents, is totally closed to anything fluid, organic, or beautiful. It's all about measurable, solid reality.
And the setting where he delivers this philosophy is just as barren. The schoolroom is a plain, bare, monotonous vault.
No warmth, no stimulus, nothing that deviates from the quantifiable truth.
And that brings us to that famous classroom scene, which is literally titled Murdering the Innocents. This is where we see the immediate visceral damage of this education.
Yes, it all boils down to defining a horse.
Such a simple thing.
And Dickens makes it brilliant and specific. The children, or as he calls them, the little pitchers, which reduces them to empty vessels waiting to be filled, are all lined up. Gradgrind and a government official demand the definition of a horse from Sissy Jupe, or girl number 20.
And Sissy, who is the daughter of a circus clown, is instantly thrown into the greatest alarm.
She's completely incapable of reciting the cold technical facts about even one of the commonest of animals.
And the irony is, she knows horses, she loves them, she lives among them at the circus, but she can't provide the factual definition the state requires.
And you contrast that failure with the shining success of Bitzer.
Ah, Bitzer. The light-eyed, light-haired boy. He's always described as being utterly devoid of color.
It's a great symbol for his lack of warmth or inner life. He is well crammed with specific mechanical knowledge, and he instantly provides the definition.
And it's such a beautifully useless definition. He details the horse's 4 feet, its size, the number of teeth.
Specifically 4 eye teeth and 12 incisive.
Right. And the fact that its coat sheds in the spring, its hoofs are hard and need iron shoes, and that its age is known by marks in the mouth.
It's technically perfect data, but the understanding of the animal, its spirit, its purpose beyond its mechanics, the fancy of it, is entirely absent.
Bitzer is a machine reciting data points. This is Dickens' early indictment of rote learning, showing you can know all the facts and yet understand nothing of life.
And this mechanical, factual approach, it extends beyond the classroom into an outright war on fancy.
This is where the other gentleman comes in. The government officer, who's referred to almost like a gladiator, a professed pugilist of argument.
And his specific job is to reinforce this anti-imagination principle across all areas of daily life. What's so fascinating is how they try to assimilate fancy itself into fact.
He claims that taste is only another name for fact, calling it a new principle, a discovery, a great discovery.
Which is a terrifying level of ideological control. It asserts that your personal aesthetic preference is actually just a logical deduction based on observable data.
And this leads to the most absurd but also chilling example of this aesthetic utilitarianism, the carpet rule.
The kids are asked if they would use a carpet with flowers on it, and Sissy, of course, says yes because she's very fond of flowers.
But the gentleman just cuts her off with this terrifying logic. You mustn't fancy.
The principle is, you are not to see anywhere what you don't see in fact. And since you don't walk upon flowers in fact, because you'd crush them, you cannot be allowed to walk upon representations of flowers and carpets.
That sounds so ridiculous on the surface.
It does, but it's fundamentally about stripping the world of symbolic representation, of joy, of pleasure. If you can't prove it with data or experience it tangibly in that specific scenario, it has to be outlawed.
The same rule applies to foreign birds on crockery or quadrupeds on walls.
Instead, they must only use combinations and modifications and primary colors of mathematical figures which are susceptible of proof and demonstration.
So art and design are reduced to pure geometry and primary colors.
It's a perfect reflection of the Industrial Revolution's drive towards efficiency and quantification, stripping out any ornamentation that's deemed unnecessary or, uneconomic.
And this intellectual conformity is the ultimate goal. The narrator tells us the ultimate aim is to create a board of fact composed of commissioners of fact who will force the people to be a people of fact and of nothing but fact.
This is Dickens basically predicting the rise of technocratic, data-driven governance. He's warning against this totalitarian ideal where imagination isn't just discouraged, it's actively policed and regulated by a governing body of fact-checkers and statisticians.
And the consequence of this philosophical straitjacket is the city itself. Coketown.
Coketown isn't just a setting, it's a character, defined by its philosophical distortion. It's described as severely workful, a blur of soot and smoke perpetually in a haze.
Even on a sunny midsummer day. And the sources tell us that the city's architecture is a testament to this monochrome logic.
Look at the chapels. They're built by 18 different religious persuasions, yet they aren't described as places of worship.
No, they're pious warehouses of red brick.
That word warehouse is the key. Everything in Coketown is just a functional container. The sacred has been reduced to storage.
And this utilitarian indistinguishability is so chilling. The jail, the infirmary, the town hall, they might have been either or both or anything else.
All because of their identical fact construction. There's no architectural expression of identity or purpose or history. A place of healing looks just like a place of punishment.
Which looks just like a place of civic governance. This homogenization means that every aspect of life in Coketown is governed by what the book calls the rule of figures.
And the narrator warns that anything you couldn't state in figures or show to be purchasable in the cheapest market and saleable in the dearest was not and never should be world without end. Amen.
That line is so powerful. It defines existence purely in terms of economic exchange. If you can't measure it or monetize it, it literally doesn't exist.
It's the ultimate denial of human value, of love, loyalty, aspiration, spiritual longing. None of that can be quantified, so therefore it's worthless.
And that denial leads directly to the Gradgrind Party's conclusion about the workers.
They believe the people of Coketown must be a bad lot altogether, that do what you would for them, they were never thankful for it, that they never knew what they wanted.
But why? Because they denied the human element entirely. They only measured inputs and outputs. They never factored in the need for joy or relief.
Right. The narrator warns that one of the foremost elements in the existence of the working people had been deliberately set at naught. The need for fancy, for amusement, which must be satisfied.
Or must and would inevitably go wrong until the laws of the creation were repealed.
It's Dickens telling the masters, you cannot run society solely on a spreadsheet. Humanity has intrinsic, unquantifiable needs. If you strip away every opportunity for imagination or joy, the workers will inevitably seek destructive outlets.
I love that image of the steam engines as melancholy mad elephants. It's such a strange, wonderful, and melancholy description for something so purely functional.
That's a great point. He's using that pathetic fallacy, giving the machinery feelings, to highlight the fact that the humans operating them have been stripped of their own.
So the machines are described in terms we usually reserve for wild, powerful, sorrowful animals. They have more life than the people.
Exactly. The machinery has taken on the only life, albeit a mechanical, melancholy one, while the human hands are reduced to silent, interchangeable parts. Coketown is a desert of logic where the only things that truly live are the numbers and the machines.
That sets a pretty grim stage.
Yeah.
If Coketown is the world built entirely on fact, we need to meet the characters, the human products of that suffocating environment.
Let's transition to the people who either champion or are tragically destroyed by the Gradgrind system. And we have to start with the loudest, most self-serving proponent of all,
Josiah Bounderby.
Josiah Bounderby. He is the physical and philosophical partner to Gradgrind, but he represents a different, more cynical facet of the utilitarian age. The triumphant, self-made man myth. He's a truly grotesque figure.
He's physically repulsive. A big, loud man with a stare and a metallic laugh, inflated like a balloon.
Yes, and he's the definition of the bully of humility, constantly proclaiming his low birth and hard struggle, as if his success can only be measured by how terrible his past was.
His entire identity is constructed around this lie of being a self-made man, a boast he uses to justify his lack of charity, his rudeness, and his oppressive behavior.
He seems to take pride in being a social distinction as to be a nuisance, an encumbrance, and a pest.
His boasted background is this dark fairy tale of self-sufficiency. He claims his mother bolted ma'am, leaving him to a wicked grandmother.
A grandmother he describes as the wickedest and the worst old woman that ever lived, who would sell his shoes for drink and drink 14 glasses of liquor before breakfast.
It's so over the top. It's almost like a pantomime villain setup.
Exactly. Dickens is using that hyperbole to signal immediately that Bounderby is a fraud. No one's life story is that perfectly tragic and heroic.
He insists that he pulled through it, though nobody threw me out a rope.
And he tells everyone his antecedents involved learning letters from shop signs and telling time from the steeple clock of St. Giles's Church, London, under the direction of a drunken cripple.
He boasts that he rose from vagabond errand boy, vagabond laborer, porter clerk, chief manager, small partner, Josiah Bounderby of Coketown.
And he weaponizes this fictional past. He even tells Gradgrind, "You may force him to swallow boiling fat, but you shall never force him to suppress the facts of his life."
The dramatic irony there is just suffocating. The supposed champion of verifiable fact built his entire public identity on the wildest fiction.
A powerful act of imagination, the very thing he supposedly despises.
And this fabricated life is designed to maintain control. By insisting he pulled himself up by his bootstraps alone, he can morally justify the starvation wages and lack of support he offers his own hands.
He can just say, "If I did it, anyone can do it. Your suffering is your own fault."
But the lie is destined to collapse. It's undermined by the mysterious old woman who shows up in Coketown.
Mrs. Pegler, who is eventually revealed to be his mother.
And she reveals the simple, heartwarming truth. Bounderby was raised lovingly by her, not abandoned. She ran a little shop, she struggled, but she sacrificed for him.
The shocking truth is that he had pensioned her to keep down in my own part and make no boasts about him and not trouble him.
So his pride was so immense and so tied to his self-made myth that he paid his own mother to disappear, just so he could brag about conquering a hardship that never existed.
It's a spectacular failure of the man of fact.
So Bounderby is the fraud who profits from the fact system. Now let's look at the generation directly raised within it. Tom and Louisa Gradgrind.
The children who are the ultimate victims of the system's philosophical principle.
Louisa Gradgrind, the eldest, is replete with facts, trained to mathematical exactness, but she's emotionally nullified.
Right. When her father finds her peeping through the fence at the circus, the realm of fancy, she reveals her deep alienation. She's simply tired of everything.
Her life is a hollow calculation. She knows everything factual, but she has no emotional toolkit. This void is most powerfully hinted at when her father asks if she is consulting the chimneys of the Coketown works.
And she replies with that incredible moment of repressed longing. There seems to be nothing there but languid and monotonous smoke. Yet when the night comes, fire bursts out, Father.
That fire is her suppressed inner life, her desire, her passion, which has been rigorously contained by the cold facts.
It's a terrifying image. It suggests that if emotion isn't given a healthy outlet, a space for fancy, it will emerge violently, uncontrollably, like a fire at night.
And this emotional void makes her susceptible to a purely calculated decision. Her marriage to Bounderby, a man 30 years older than her.
The ultimate transaction. She accepts the marriage not out of affection, which she's been taught is irrelevant, but because staying at home was like staying in jail, especially when Tom was gone.
She sees Bounderby as an escape route, but the arrangement is ultimately engineered by her younger brother, Tom.
Whom Dickens labels the whelp.
The whelp. He is the logical, selfish product of the system, ill-natured and relentlessly self-interested.
And he uses Louisa's deep, protective affection for him, which is really the only non-factual human connection she possesses, to manipulate her.
He admits he pushed the marriage to prevent old Bounderby's pipe out and secure his own advancement at Bounderby's bank, where he's a clerk.
He sees his sister's sacrifice not as a tragedy, but as charming, a useful bit of data to leverage. Later, he casually tells James Harthouse that she ought to use her position to coax it out of him, referring to money, since she married Bounderby for Tom's sake.
So Tom is the perfect utilitarian failure. He applies the Gradgrind principle of self-interest in transaction, not just to business, but to his own sister.
He doesn't see her as a person. He sees her as a tool to save himself from his mounting gambling debts. It's a moral vacuum masquerading as pragmatic self-interest.
And if Tom is the logical endpoint of the Gradgrind system, James Harthouse is the representative of the cynical elite who find Coketown's lack of fancy appealing precisely because they are bored.
Harthouse is the genteel infidel, a thorough gentleman, weary of everything and putting no more faith in anything than Lucifer.
He decides to go in for statistics and hard fact, simply as a novelty, seeing it as a good opening among the rigidly serious Gradgrind set.
And this is a crucial layer to Dickens' critique. He isn't just criticizing the industrial class, he's also criticizing the idle aristocracy who treat political economy as a fashionable parlor game.
Harthouse's indifference is profound, and it's highlighted by that anecdote about his brother, an honorable member of Parliament.
Yes, his brother famously entertained the House of Commons by jokingly putting a widow's cap on a dead cow after a terrible railway accident that killed 5 people.
It's just that reveals the elite's delicate sense of humor toward human suffering. They see death and misery as material for witty, detached amusement.
And Harphouse brings this polished, bored cynicism to Coketown.
He's a predator in this environment. He quickly identifies Louise's repressed nature, that she is so constrained and yet so careless, so reserved and yet so watchful.
He realizes she's a volcano waiting to erupt because her inner fire has no release. And of course, he weaponizes her love for Tom.
By offering her sympathy and attention, he establishes a confidence with her from which her calculating husband is excluded. The foundation of this bond is built on her indifference towards her husband.
He is the ultimate drifting iceberg. The narrator points out that it would be much better for the age in which he lived that he and the legion of whom he was one were designedly bad than indifferent and purposeless.
That's a remarkable indictment.
Mm-hmm.
That the true danger isn't necessarily the cruel man, but the man so bored by life that he manipulates others simply for sport.
It shows that the system doesn't just oppress the poor, it psychologically warps the wealthy and powerful.
Absolutely. The system produces monstrous self-aggrandizers like Bounderby, amoral manipulators like Tom, and cynical hedonists like Harthouse. All of them are moral distortions resulting from the suppression of fancy.
And now we have to shift focus to the Coketown hands, the working people, and specifically Stephen Blackpool.
Who represents the quiet integrity and profound injustice suffered by the laborers trapped beneath this utilitarian machine?
Stephen Blackpool is the moral heart of the novel's critique of industrial relations. He's introduced as an honest, hard-working power loom weaver and a man of perfect integrity.
He's the simple good man, destroyed by complex, terrible systems. And his famous line, "'Tis a muddle," captures the tragedy of his life. So we need to define what that muddle truly represents.
The muddle is not just personal bad luck. It's the incomprehensible knot of laws, societal expectations, and economic oppression designed to trap the working class.
And his personal tragedy immediately highlights the massive class disparity inherent in the legal structure. It centers on his marriage.
Yes, he's married to a dissolute, drunken woman, Mrs. Blackpool, who constantly leaves but comes back again, fouling his home, selling his things, creating chaos.
And he cannot get a divorce, even though he begs Bounderby for a solution.
And this is where the class distinction becomes so sharp. He confronts Bounderby, pointing out that great folk can be set free from their misfortunate marriages and marry over again.
They have rooms of one kind and another in their houses. They can live apart. The wealthy can use the legal system and physical space to solve their domestic problems.
But Stephen and his peers have no such luxury. He laments, "We folk have only one room, and we can't." They're forced to live cheek by jowl with their misery.
And Bounderby, of course, just coldly dismisses him, saying he took her for better for worse.
Stephen's profound response, shaking his head and motioning with his hand, as if he gave everything to the four winds, is the ultimate conclusion about his world. 'Tis a muddle. 'Tis just a muddle altogether, and the sooner I am dead, the better.
And that statement is a profound social critique disguised as a personal complaint. The legal, economic, and social systems are designed not for clarity or justice, but as an oppressive, incomprehensible jumble that crushes those at the bottom.
And this muddle just gets deeper when he's isolated from his own class during the unionization attempt.
This is Dickens showing that the muddle comes from both the masters and the internal conflicts of the workers.
He attends the union meeting, led by Slackbridge, the delegate, and Slackbridge is presented as manipulative, visually contrasted with the earnest workers.
He's an ill-made, high-shouldered man with lowering brows, substituting cunning for their simplicity. The workers are genuinely serious, but their leadership is questionable.
So Stephen refuses to join the union, the United Aggregate Tribunal. He explains he has passed a promise to Rachel, the one woman he truly loves, to avoid trouble and conflict.
He objects to the aggressive language and the factionalism.
And even though the rank-and-file union members are described as gravely, deeply, faithfully, and earnest, Slackbridge instantly seizes on Stephen's refusal as an opportunity for demagoguery.
He condemns Stephen as a traitor, a recreant, a Judas figure.
This is a really sophisticated critique of 19th century organized labor. Dickens isn't against the workers' cause, but he's deeply suspicious of the rhetoric and manipulation used by charismatic, self-interested leaders like Slackbridge.
Leaders who divide the workers instead of unifying them against the masters.
The consequence for Stephen is immediate and devastating. He is sent to Coventry, meaning he is completely shunned.
He experiences the loneliest of lives, the life of solitude among a familiar crowd. His fellow workers deliberately avoid the side of the street he walks on.
This abandonment is harder than his poverty. It strips him of the recognition of a nod, a look, a word that had sustained him in the harsh environment of Coketown.
Yet, despite being cast out by both masters and men, Stephen maintains his integrity, and he delivers his most profound social critique directly to Bounderby and Harthouse.
When Bounderby summons him, ranting about rascals and rebels, Stephen defends his fellow workers. He insists to Louisa, in a moment of great moral clarity, that the hands are not rebels nor yet rascals, but are true to one another, faithful to one another, affectionate to one another, e'en unto death.
And then he delivers the ultimate indictment of the Gradgrind philosophy. The real complaint of the workers is the master's practice of rating them as so much power and regulating them as if they was figures in a sume or machines without loves and lichens.
This will never do, sir, till God's work is unmade.
That quote is really the core of the novel's philosophical argument, isn't it?
It is. Stephen says the problem isn't just wages or working conditions, though those are terrible. The problem is the dehumanization inherent in utilitarianism. By treating men as quantitative power or figures in a sume, they deny their inherent humanity.
He argues that's a rebellion against God's creation itself.
And Bounderby, already furious that Stephen wouldn't join the Union and now faced with this moral truth, uses Stephen's outcast status as an excuse to discharge him completely. He's blacklisted from Coketown.
This sets the stage for Tom's ultimate act of cowardice and betrayal, the bank robbery.
Tom, deep in debt, steals £150-odd using a false key. Bitzer, the light porter, finds the safe forced.
And Tom, the ultimate selfish product of the fact system, uses Stephen's newly acquired outcast status to frame him.
He admits to Louisa that he had made some representation to Stephen Blackpool to induce him to wait about the bank the nights before he left town, thereby manufacturing suspicion perfectly. The logical man uses the simple, good man as a scapegoat.
So Stephen, having left Coketown to seek work, hears the news and immediately decides to return to clear his name.
That journey back leads to his final tragic muddle.
It is Sissy Jupe and Rachel who track him down. Sissy, guided by her intuitive understanding and affection, tracks him to the old hell shaft.
An abandoned pit, a symbol of the industrial age's lethal disregard for safety. The narrator describes it as crueler than battle.
And Stephen is found deep within the pit, having fallen. It takes hours for ropes and equipment to arrive. The simple logistics of a rescue are a muddle in themselves.
He's mortally wounded, and even as he dies, staring up at a star that Sissy points out to him, he confirms his life's great tragedy. Ah, a muddle. Fro first to last. A muddle.
He laments that the pit's killed without need, both when in use and when abandoned. A final bitter truth about the wastefulness of the system.
His final request is to Gradgrind, who arrives at the scene. It's a plea for justice, not for himself, but for his reputation. Sir, you'll clear me and make my name good with all men. This I leave to you.
His integrity is preserved only in death, and only through the promise of the system's architect. It's the failure of fact to account for basic human morality.
We've now seen the damage caused by the Gradgrind system, from the warping of the elite to the destruction of the laborer.
But the novel doesn't end in total despair. It suggests that the only thing that can possibly save the Gradgrind family or society is the saving grace of fancy.
Embodied by Sissy Jupe and the world she comes from.
Sissy Jupe, the circus clown's daughter who couldn't define a horse. She is the novel's moral compass and its emotional antidote.
When she was brought into the Gradgrind household, she was subjected to the full force of the fact system, but her fundamental nature, modified by love and gratitude, resisted the poisoning.
She functions as a quiet moral force multiplier. Louisa realizes this contrast when she looks at her younger sister, Jane Gradgrind. Sissy's influence has produced a harmony and balance in Jane's life that turned to devastating discord in her own.
Sissy introduces the necessary counterweight, and her most powerful moment of action, a moment of pure, fancy-defeating cold cynicism, is her appeal to James Harthouse.
She goes to him, alone, at his hotel, asking him to leave immediately and finally.
She's young, alone, and completely honest. She uses no logic or moralizing arguments. She confronts the cynical tempter using only the commission of my love for her and her love for me.
She tells him he must believe that there is no hope of his ever speaking with Louisa again than there would be if she had died when she came home last night.
And Harthouse, the man who put no more faith in anything than Lucifer, is defeated not by logic or theology, but by Sissy's sheer sincerity, her modesty, her gentle steadiness.
He calls his defeat ridiculous, confessing that he is vanquished at all points by this moral force he can't quantify or mock, and he leaves.
He retreats from the one thing he couldn't manipulate. genuine affection.
And the source of fancy, the circus, also provides the ultimate philosophical counterpoint to Gradgrind's logic.
This is Mr. Sleary, the proprietor, a delightful mess of a man, a stout man with one fixed eye and one loose eye whose voice is like a broken old pair of bellows.
And he talks with a lisp, but despite his muddled appearance, he is the one who helps Gradgrind save his disgraced son Tom.
He gives Gradgrind the philosophical truth the eminently practical man has missed his whole life.
Sleary's ultimate philosophical statement, delivered with his characteristic lisp, is one of the most quoted lines from the novel.
And deservedly so. It's Dickens' manifesto for humanity. People must be amused, squire, somehow. They can't be always a-working, nor yet they can't be always a-learning. Make the best to doth, not the worst.
It's a plea to recognize that human beings need amusement, joy, relief, and affection, and that you must govern by appealing to the best in them, not the worst.
The direct antithesis of the Gradgrind philosophy. It's the philosophy of compassion over calculation.
And the climactic battle between rigid fact and essential fancy is illustrated perfectly in the attempt to capture Tom.
Bitzer. Gradgrind's star pupil, the perfectly logical man, is the one who tracks Tom down at the circus.
And his motivation, as he explains to a distraught Gradgrind, is purely utilitarian, totally consistent with his upbringing.
He lays out his logic perfectly. The whole social system is a question of self-interest. What you must always appeal to is a person's self-interest.
He wants Tom's job at the bank, and he sees turning Tom in as his duty to himself. He even uses the exact language of the Gradgrind school.
He was made in the cheapest market and have to dispose of myself in the dearest.
Bitzer is the logical triumph of the system. A colorless, mechanical, self-interested being who believes he's acting virtuously because he's acting according to economic law.
But the rigid logic of fact is brilliantly foiled by the absurdity and ingenuity of fancy. Sleary's escape plan is marvelous.
It's a work of pure, compassionate imagination. He uses his circus troupe, including the learned dog, the pony, and the strongman E.W.B. Childers, to thwart Bitzer.
It's highly symbolic. The logical man of pure self-interest, Bitzer, is physically restrained by a trained circus dog, a creature trained for amusement and affection.
While the philosophical representative of fancy Sleary provides salvation, the escape involves the horse dancing the polka to distract Bitzer, while the pony gig whisks Tom away.
The forces of joy and distraction defeat the forces of rigid calculation.
This series of crises, Louise's breakdown, Stephen's death, and Tom's disgrace, finally forces Gradgrind, the champion of facts, to collapse.
He is stunned, and the ground on which I stand has ceased to be solid under my feet. The world built on his square foundation has crumbled.
He realizes that he has been a profoundly unhappy man.
He recognizes that qualities in Louisa have been harshly neglected, and he admits the possibility that what the head had left undone and could not do, the heart may have been doing silently through Sissy's influence.
It is a painful, reluctant repentance, but he acknowledges the vital existence of things that cannot be quantified.
And Bounderby, the great man of fact, meets his final, humiliating downfall when his writer's life is revealed.
Mrs. Sparsit, who had been convinced Louisa was falling down a figurative giant staircase of moral ruin, drags Mrs. Pegler into the house.
And the moment of the reveal is the complete public exposure of the hypocrisy at the heart of the industrial myth.
Bounderby is detected as the bully of humility who had built his windy reputation upon lies. He looks superlatively absurd, exposed as a self-made humbug.
His entire identity just evaporates. He immediately divorces Louisa and resumes a lonely bachelor life, having lost the one thing he valued most, his reputation.
As we mentioned earlier, the critical legacy of this novel is tied to its uncompromising structure. It's a morality play, conceptual from the start, prioritizing issues more than souls.
The style is openly polemical, angry, and eloquently argumentative. It relies on hyperbole and exaggeration to drive home its point.
That hyperbole is so deliberate. Naming Gradgrind's sons, Adam Smith and Malthus, ensures the reader knows exactly which economic and social theories Dickens is targeting.
Laissez-faire economics of Smith and Malthusian principles of population control and limited charity, which suggested that helping the poor only encouraged them to breed, worsening their misery.
Dickens uses these names to make sure we understand that the source of the social cruelty is intellectual.
And while the novel wasn't a huge hit initially, it didn't boost the circulation of his magazine, Household Words. It was later revived in 1948 by critics like F.R. Leavis.
And why then?
Precisely because it was non-sentimental, tightly structured, and focused so directly on the damaging effects of industrial production and industrial thinking on human society. It was his first successful attempt at this streamlined, forceful social critique.
Arguing that data alone can never govern the human heart.
So what does this all mean for us today in a world that is arguably more metric-driven than Coketown ever was?
This deep dive has shown us the profound danger of reducing human existence to mere figures, production capacity, and rigid self-interest.
We've seen the damage wrought by utilitarianism through the Gradgrind family's emotional starvation. We've seen the necessary, vital role of imagination and affection fancy in creating moral beings, anchored by Sissy and Sleary.
And we've seen the profound class disparities and injustice illustrated through the muddled life and tragic death of Stephen Blackpool.
Dickens presents a world where the relentless pursuit of verifiable facts destroys the soul. And the novel ends with this powerful, almost prophetic warning.
It's linked to Stephen and Rachel's simple, loving parting, but it's aimed directly at the masters, and really at anyone holding power today. Dickens warns the wealthy too.
Cultivate in them the poor, while there is yet time, the utmost graces of the fancies and affections to adorn their lives so much in need of ornament, or in the day of your triumph, when romance is utterly driven out of their souls and they and a bare existence stand face to face, reality will take a wolfish turn and make an end of you.
That is a stark, almost revolutionary forecast. It's a challenge to those in power to recognize that the human need for ornament, for art, for pleasure, for kindness is not a luxury.
It's a necessity. If you strip away everything but bare existence, you don't create compliant workers, you create a wolfish, vengeful reality.
And this final thought connects directly back to you, the listener, today. The narrator concludes by saying it rests with you and me whether similar things shall be or not.
Dickens makes the moral responsibility universal.
So, we'll leave you with this challenge. As you look at the systems and structures that govern your own field, which philosophy dominates your world today?
Is it Gradgrind's relentless facts and figures, where performance is measured by KPIs and efficiency reports?
Or is it Sleary's compassionate belief that people must be immune and that we must always make the best of youth, not the worth? Consider whether the suppression of fancy in favor of fact is making your own world a little too much like Coketown.